because one of my questions, I don't know if you had the chance to go through all of them, but
yes.
one of my questions was, where do you get all that energy?
Yes, it's often a question that's asked quite a lot. Of course, we do it in short bursts when we're recording, but it definitely does take quite a bit of energy to keep going for the whole day when we're in the studio to sort of like keep it going. And it's quite strange that I'm very much used to a teacher is usually a performer, and you're putting on almost a little bit of a show for the younger children, and you're used to getting the energy back from the children. So you do something, they like it, they appreciate it, so that gives you the energy to sort of go on to the next thing. So very often the kids give you the energy back. In the studio, there aren't the children there, and you don't necessarily know that something is funny or working, and that takes probably a little bit more energy because there isn't the response back.
Oh, okay.
So I find it much easier in front of the children because you know it's working, you get excited, you get into it, and the energy starts to flow. Where in the studio it's a bit difficult because you do something and there's no reaction because there's nobody there. So it's.
Oh, but you have to train your cameraman to be more.
Yes, but the trouble is that if they start laughing or anything, then of course we have to do it again. So they have to try to suppress, their reaction to it, because otherwise then it's sort of like, well, who's that? It's another character. But we are working on another new character, so I can give you an exclusive if you like.
Wow.
So we're playing around. It's for older children. There's an alien that comes from outer space, and he's very curious about everything.
Cute. He's sort of like E.T. You know E.T.?
Yeah, he's a nice friendly alien that he's really curious to learn how to say hello, because in his language, how do you say hello? It's a oh, that's hello. Yeah, so we can have a bit of fun. At the moment, he's called.
Are you going to make his? Are you going to be giving him a voice or?
Yes, yeah. It's well, yeah. Like with Maggie, it's me that does the puppet work, and I think I'll be doing the puppet work for him as well. So
have you practiced?
Well, this is what I'm doing now. Yeah. So currently practicing trying to bring the character to life. So it's
great. Okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah, we'll see.
I was thinking, since we were talking about the videos.
Yeah.
You started them quite recently, I think in 2014, wasn't it?
We've been working on it for quite a long time, but we opened up the YouTube channel relatively recently, yeah. But in terms of all the materials, the yellow book, the blue book, the red book, the kindergarten materials, we've been working on those for a lot longer. But we started to upload some videos onto YouTube, and it seemed to make it available for a wider audience.
They seem to be hugely popular. Do you have any statistics?
We do, yes. We're on. We've got Google Analytics. I think at the moment the channel bounces around about 3.5 million in 2 days.
That's crazy.
But we'll see. We'll see. So hopefully it does continue.
Why do you think your videos are so catchy for children, so popular?
Well, it's been quite a surprise for us that a lot of the videos have actually become quite popular in America and in Britain.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where most of our audience actually comes from. So it was a surprise to all of us. But we've had some fantastic comments on the YouTube page about children that have either speech difficulties, and they're in speech therapy classes, and they've really been helped by our videos. Quite a lot of parents of autistic children have said that they really enjoy our videos because what I always try to do with the videos is to be silly but not stupid.
Yes.
And of course, there's a lot of stupid videos around, that the children absolutely love. But they're not really learning anything, and I think the parents often think, well, this is a bit of a waste of time, and they feel guilty about letting them watch the videos. And I think with us, the parents don't feel guilty because they think they can see that the children are learning, they are repeating, We give time to practice some of the language so that it's staged between. We try to keep the story moving and rolling, but there is time to actually focus in on the language.
I think it's also the repetition that
Yes.
you invite children to repeat after you. That's actually what it makes so attractive for my daughter.
Yeah. We try to be interactive, that it's not something that they just sit and watch passively.
Yes, that's very nice.
That it is something that they sort of get involved with. And I think if they get involved, then they feel part of it. If they feel part of it, then we answer that question, well, why am I learning English? You know, why bother learning a new language? It's because your new friend Steve and his friend Maggie, they only speak English, and you can enjoy. So yeah, it's been part of the methodology that's wrapped up. But along with all of that, I think there are just lots of children that just do enjoy them, even if they don't have any sort of particular learning difficulties. A lot of native English-speaking children seem to be enjoying them as well. So
they're quite original, you know.
Thank you.
Among all other cartoons that really don't make that much sense, they're very original. I like them very much too.
Thank you very much. That's
so I
that's great.
understand why kids like them.
Super.
Speaking about the methodology,
Yes.
Can you tell us just briefly what it is about, and who is it intended for, and why did it actually? Did you create it?
Well, to sort of break down the questions, the sort of the first one, who's it intended for? I think it's people with a sense of humour. Because we've also had quite a lot of 20-somethings that have said that they enjoy watching the videos. They're learning English with it. A lot of parents have sort of said, you know, it's great, we can play along with it. So it is for the young. It is for young children, but also I think the young at heart. And I think learning through fun. I do really like I think it's a Chinese proverb that I came across, which is to like something is better than to know it.
Oh.
And I think originally, at the beginning, that's certainly true. And I think for the children under the ages of sort of like 7, 8 years old, before the language centres of the brain have closed and it becomes more of an academic study, if they enjoy something, then they'll be learning without realising it. And they're going over it in their brains. They're sort of remembering it. Say, yeah, oh, we did this, and I really enjoyed that. Oh, and then that happened, and then this happened, and he said this. And that's far more valuable than to sort of saying, well, you must know this. You have to get this in your head. And I think that's a little problem with my language abilities. I speak a few languages, but all of them incredibly badly. My Japanese from my time in Japan is incredibly bad, and my Czech isn't so great. My French is probably on the way out.
You're picking up the most difficult languages in the world.
Set a challenge.
Start with simpler.
I think Czech is probably the hardest. It's the grammar is really confusing to me, but I have a little problem in that when for adults and for older children, there tends to be this focus on, I must remember this. This is important. I have to get this.
Yeah.
And the teacher's approach to teaching is also, well, come on, we did this last week. You should remember it. Try to remember it. And of course, the more you try to remember something I have to remember, the more stress you put on yourself, and the less likely you are to actually remember it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So sort of what we did is to try to make it fun and interesting and incredibly repetitive. So it's definitely focused for the younger learners, but we're progressing and we're making more and more content. We have our Bob the Blob that will pop in and make an appearance for the slightly older children. So we're definitely aiming to sort of to build up across lots and lots of age ranges.
Yes.
So that's who's it for.
I've noticed you also you provide the methodology not only for Czech schools but also for foreign schools, other countries.
Yes. We've been quite lucky that, of course, we create materials in English, and it's primarily for children learning English as a second or a foreign language. And the great bonus of that, of course, is that English has sort of become the lingua franca of the world. There are, almost every country is teaching children how to speak English because it's the international language of business, trade, negotiations and politics and everything else. So we've been lucky that, of course, the materials are able to be sold in many different countries, and we are in the process of looking for various different master franchises. But already we sell books in Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic. We have some in Portugal, some in Spain, some in Italy. We sent some sample books off to Hong Kong, and I think this morning we had a request from an international school in Japan.
Wow!
So
Congratulations.
thank you very much. Yeah, it is hard work. It's not easy to sort of like, to try to keep it. We have a great team that obviously is trying to push that side of things, but it's just sort of getting noticed, getting the word out there, and showing the teachers that the teachers are quite conservative. They like what they know, and they know what they like. And very often they've been using, certain books for, the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And when we show them something that really has the DVD totally integrated to the entire structure of the course, which has a native English speaker that comes to the classroom, models the language for them, but doesn't replace them. And I think that's key. The DVDs are never meant to replace the teacher. It's as a teaching aid where the children have access to native English speaking pronunciation, the stress, the rhythm, the intonation, the music of the language, that they can pick up from there, from me and Maggie. But then the teacher can reinforce with playing lots of games in the classroom. And of course, the most important thing in a classroom is the teacher. And if the teacher loves the resources and is engaged and interested in them, then that gets passed on to the children, that enthusiasm for learning, that enthusiasm for working with these materials. So we always try to say, the DVD we hope is a wonderful resource for you, but it's another resource for you to use in the classroom. So it's
you're sort of like a partner to the teacher after that.
Essentially, So it's sort of to become like the language assistant, if you will, but certainly not to replace the teacher. Why did we do it? Was one of your questions. Why did we feel the need to sort of like to invent something new? Essentially, I've been teaching for quite a long time, specialising in very young learners. It was actually my first young learner class was in Japan, and I arrived and they said, okay, your first class is with some businessmen, and your second class is with a group of 2-year-olds, and off you go, good luck. And they just sort of like kicked us into the classroom. But very quickly, I do come from a relatively large family. There's always been quite a few babies in the family, so I've had quite a lot of contact with them, and not sort of freaked out by children. In fact, almost the opposite. But from teaching for about sort of 15 to 20 years or something like that, noticed that a lot of the teachers they either do one of two things. They either really follow the teacher's book and do everything that's in the teacher's book and follow it word for word. And sometimes I picked up, certainly not all teachers, I'm not saying all teachers like this, but quite a few teachers were following the teacher's book, but they're not necessarily understanding how and why the lesson is put together in that particular way. And the other type of teacher, of course, has the books and the materials, the flashcards and everything, but they put together their own lesson. And they sort of say, they go on the internet, they find a few games, and they say, yes, we want to play this one and that one and that one. But again, there was a little bit missing from what I saw, maybe not actually in the books, but in the teacher's understanding of how the lesson is really structured. And from as my teaching progressed, and I went from being a teacher to being a senior teacher to then being sort of playing more of a role in training and helping teachers to understand, was to have a very simple key stages for the teachers to follow, to say, well, when you're introducing new language, the first thing you need to do is this, the second thing is this, the third thing is this, and finally you can get them to actually speak. And too many teachers jump to this is an English class, so the children must speak.
We must speak, right.
And there's too much pressure early on. There are key stages that you need to go through before you can ask the children to actually produce the language. So when I sort of sat down to look at it, and through all the teacher training that I was doing, I said, well, if I can give the teachers these 4 key stages to follow, then they understand the logic for the lesson, and when they want to bring something new in, they can put it in the right place where it does the job that you need it to do.
Yes.
So we had this methodology sort of like kind of slowly came together. But of course, it didn't fit exactly into some of the books that many teachers were using. And there's a lot of fantastic materials on the market, from Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, Longman, Macmillan. There's lots and lots of great stuff. But of course, it's slightly different from how I was thinking that a lesson should be easy for the teacher to follow. Obviously, there's lots of different games, so it's not just repetitive for the children. So the idea came up, well, let's take this philosophy or this sort of like approach, which seems to be very clear and works very well in the teachers that I do the teacher training for. Oh, right, okay, yeah, now I understand the logic behind it. Well, let's build that into all of the materials. And let's sort of make the books that go along with that, so there isn't the question of how do I take these ideas and put them into what I'm already using. Let's just put the two together and make it quite simple and logical. And from that, of course, came, well, we needed a character, we needed somebody. We had different cartoon drawings and all the rest of it, but we said, well, why is the teacher so important in the class? What does a native English speaker bring? Well, they bring, greater understanding through the use of their body, through the use of their face, showing something. And we all know that, body language is very important, and facial features tell you so much about, what's actually happening. So we said, well, let's use a real face, and say, okay, well, which face should we use? And they said, well, you have a funny face that the children laugh at, so let's use your face. So it's so that kind of
And
progressed.
I really like the idea about the puppet, because if it's a Czech teacher in a kindergarten, which the Czech teacher speaks most of the time in Czech, but then comes time for 60-minute English lesson, so he can take out the puppet.
Yep, absolutely.
That's the sign. Now here's the English puppet. We speak English.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, on our training course, we have a little look at what we call sort of language hooks, and how to show that you're changing language. Because if you just suddenly change, it's obviously it's a bit jarring. It's a bit strange as to why. Maggie usually sits in her nest. We advise that the teacher makes a special nest for Maggie.
That's nice.
Because sometimes as soon as you get out a puppet, the kids, oh yeah, great, whoom, and they come and they grab her. And of course then it's difficult with the management side. So we say, well, Maggie comes, she says hello, and then comes and sits on her nest where she's there. She's watching. If the children change into their mother tongue a little bit too much, Maggie is obviously very sad because she can't understand what's happening, and she might fly back into the teacher's bag until you switch back, and then she can understand and she can play along. And also if the children are a little bit naughty, Maggie doesn't like that, and she will fly away if they're too noisy. She gets scared, and if they're not doing what the teacher says, then she's not happy. So she'll fly away. She'll fly into the bag until the children are ready. So it's can be quite a useful management tool.
That is very well thought.
Yeah.
True. I do English with my daughter at home as a mother. She's 3 years old, and I use puppet as well in order to differentiate me as a mother that and speaks Czech most of the time.
Yeah.
And then we have this friend. He's only a native English speaker. His name is Fred, and it's a puppet. Yeah. And I also don't let him lie around among other toys.
I think that's key. That's key.
And then we call him by telephone, ask his mommy if she can come.
Yeah.
If he can come over, and he comes for a visit.
Yeah, I think it's quite key that to have something like that, to have a puppet or something, but then to keep it special, to keep it separate, where it's not just another toy that's buried at the bottom of the box. It's it is the English puppet that comes out.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I have another question. You were saying that you spent some time in Japan.
I did, yes.
Teaching small children. And one of my questions is whether there are some differences between Czech and Japanese children. Because,
there are.
These are totally different cultures.
Yes, there are. And I have a feeling that my answer might surprise and perhaps shock you a little. In the fact that teaching the Japanese children and teaching Czech children are actually better behaved. They're more under control.
Which children better behaved?
The Czech children.
Czech, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We have this idea, my reasoning for it is that we have this idea that the Japanese school system and the Japanese society is quite strict, and in schools they are taught that they must sit down, they must listen to the teacher, and they must do all of this, and that's absolutely true. But you find the parents of the very small children, they give their children all the freedom in the world, because they know that once they're in the school system, that's when they knuckle down and they follow the rules and they do it. But before that, there are no rules. And I did have a slight problem with one class. There was one boy who was a little bit violent and was hitting me in a sensitive area, shall we say. And I spoke to the school manager and I said, please, can you talk to the parents? This has to stop, and we need something. And the reply we got from the parents says, "Oh, don't worry. It's okay. We're sorry it's a problem, but don't worry, because when he goes to school, then that's it. Then it'll be strict and it'll all be sorted out."
Oh, okay.
So I actually find teaching the very small Czech children the Czech children are on the whole. Of course, it's difficult to talk about one society, but I'd say on the whole, yes, the very small Czech children are a little bit better behaved. The teenagers, the sort of the opposite spectrum, the Japanese teenagers, it's difficult for them to express themselves personally. I think all teenagers have a problem with this, of saying what they truly think. But I found it a lot harder to get something from the Japanese children. They always wanted to know what the reply was. What should they say? So if you gave them a sort of piece of paper and said, well, can you draw something? And say, well, what do you want me to draw? And it wasn't sort of like, okay, well, I'll just scribble something and show this, or talk about what I like, what I want.
Very detailed instructions, I guess.
Yes. So they're sort of, they want to know what the question is and what the answer should be, and they try to get that correct. So. Wow. Okay. But, so it's interesting.
I was wondering, what are the main differences between the very early learners, let's say the 2-3-year-old ones, and later, I would say not so late as 13 or 14. Yeah. Obviously, that there are many differences, but let's say 2 and 3, and then 4 and 5, or 5 and 6, because I think there are differences already.
Very much. And of course, at the very early stage, the sort of understanding of the child is me, and perhaps it's all myself, of what I want, what I've got, what I can have. And then it goes a little bit further out, as we were talking babies here, and then we go further out to it's me and mother, and perhaps then it becomes father, and then it's me as, and then the other children sort of around. So you see how it grows between, at the very young stages, they're all only really interested in that personal relationship between themselves and the teacher. So it's me and the teacher, and if you're not talking to me directly, then it's nothing to do with me, I'm not interested, and so you have to try to sort of like juggle to quickly engage with all of them, and it's sort of like, it's like playing the piano. You're trying to sort of like, it's spinning plates. It is spinning plates. It's sort of like giving enough attention to keep them interested, and then going over here and keeping them interested, and bouncing between. So it's sort of,
I can't believe managing a class of them.
Well, I mean, it's sort of, if very much at the early stages, you are the focus of all attention. So it's like everybody follow me, everybody copy me, and you are the center of attention. Later on, and as that class starts to grow and they start to understand that they see the same faces all the time, then you can put the pressure off you a little bit. I often sort of have questions from the demo lessons. They say, "Well, oh God, that was great. The kids really enjoyed it. It was fun, but there was a lot of energy, and I'm not sure I could keep that going throughout the whole time."
A couple of more lessons.
Well, yeah, exactly. But what we have to say there, of course, is that if you get the start right, and if they are engaged and sort of think, well, this is interesting, I'm having fun, then they look forward to the next lesson, then you can start to bring yourself out. And if you've got the start right, then you can bring yourself out, and instead of jumping with the children, jump, 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 you can just clap your hands and say, jump, 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 jump. So you can gesture for them to do it, rather than actually physically doing it. But at the start, once you've got them, you need to physically do it. You are the center of attention. Get them physically started, and then after that, you can pull yourself out and you can have gestures to get them to do the things that have the high energy, so that then you can do something where it's low energy. And what we built into to all of the books is this wave of high energy, low energy, high energy, low energy activities to try to manage that. With these slightly older children, of course, you can get there a little bit faster, and you can start to smooth out the activities of being high energy, low energy, high energy, low energy. You can start to smooth that out a little bit more, so you can have something that needs their concentration for a little bit longer before you go back into something which has a bit more sort of like higher energy. So you can, yes, there are differences, and we need to be sensitive to those differences. And of course, there are differences within classes as well. So there's a lot of different things. Yeah.
But are there also differences in the terms of how they perceive the language? Because I believe the younger, the more spontaneous, and the less afraid to make mistakes.
Yes.
And more motivated, because if you give them the time and the energy, they are more motivated.
Yeah.
And the older children are not so easy to be motivated, and they are afraid to make mistakes and to make sort of like they feel they make fools of themselves.
Yeah. Well, it comes with that awareness of how they perceive others and how others perceive them. But again, it's within the class you can foster this feeling that it's okay to make a mistake and to have a go. And if you're working with the class and you've been able to set that up, I have had classes where I've been teaching adults. I was teaching some CEOs of a company, and I had them leaping over chairs to try to be the first to get to the board, to circle something or to write something. The competitive nature and the ability to make a fool out of yourself never goes away.
Oh, great.
But if you're able to get that sense, that level of trust, that level of working together, where you say, yeah, it's fine, and just to have a go, you'll find that all of us have that little bit competitive edge, that little bit I want to be first, and I don't care if I get it wrong, but I'm just going to give it a go. Yeah. It's there in all of us, but we have to bring it out, and it takes time to sort of like to build up that level. And I hope that sort of like through the DVDs, which are a little bit silly but never stupid, that you can see the balance between there to say, yeah, it's okay to be a bit silly. That's fine. Okay, now you're being stupid, and that is, it's a thin line. It's a difficult line to sort of get, but if you get that right, you say, yep, we can be a little bit silly, and let's play with the language. Let's play with the different games. And I think when people feel that they look stupid in front of their peers, then that's when they close up, and that's when you're not going to get anything from them. But when the whole class agree that it's all right to be a bit silly, then that's when you can get them to produce the language. So it's
lovely.
I hope that.
You have 2 daughters. Do they also watch your videos at home, or?
Not as much as you would think.
They have the real character at home.
Well, exactly. Yeah. They do watch them, and they do sort of enjoy them, but it's a little bit tricky for them because there's a difference between Steve and Daddy. And it's an interesting sort of line as well, the line between teacher and parent. And it's perhaps something that I would like to take a closer look at, and perhaps with yourself, you have some thoughts and feelings on this. But the role of a teacher is usually to put obstacles and barriers in the way, and try to work with the children to find out how they can overcome that barrier, that obstacle. And the natural thing for a parent is to try to remove barriers and obstacles, and to sort of say, oh, you can't reach that? Okay, well, I'll get it for you, or I'll pick you up. Where a teacher will say, well, how are you going to do that? Perhaps do you think you need something that you can stand on, or something that, so you're working with the problem rather than just like saying, as mummy or daddy, I'm going to help you or do it for you. So those two roles are quite interesting. And with my daughters, somebody did ask me, they said, what's your methodology for teaching your daughters? And my reaction, which I kind of like stick to, is that I don't particularly want to have a methodology for being their daddy. And if I have to stop and think about methodology whilst I'm in the middle of a great game or something, then for me that's going to get in the way of
your relationship.
Yeah, my relationship with them. So it's
No, I absolutely understand that, and you don't need to have any methodology. It's just the way it is. You're native English speaker.
Yeah.
Do you use one parent, one language method at home?
Yes, I mean purely because obviously if I spoke any Czech to my children, which I did do once, and my oldest daughter said, "Daddy, why are you trying to speak Czech?" So I'm not trying. I am speaking Czech. Yeah, for her, of course, and I would make mistakes. My pronunciation would not be great, and passing all of that on is a negative when it could be a fantastic positive of having a whole extra, two mother tongues essentially. And I think the only sort of real kind of difference or methodology that it makes is exposure to the language. And that's what we realized with putting everything on a DVD. And with us, the children have the books, sure, but every child has the DVD to take home. And it's key for us that happens. And we have had a couple of teachers that have sort of said, well, some of them are making great progress, but some of them are not. Said, have they got the DVD? Do they watch it at home? And the single biggest thing the parent can do is to increase exposure to the language. And, we've given all of that to you on the DVD. And there was one teacher that said, well, there's one child that just doesn't get it. All the others are far ahead. We got down to this and said, okay, well, the parent is not using the DVD with the child at home. They did it, and within a month, the child was back up with the rest of the class. Exposure to the language is the single biggest differentiator.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That's what I'm actually trying to do on my website. I'm trying to make parents aware of the fact that if they provide private lessons, English lessons to their children, they cannot count that there will be 100% success. They need to support them at home in a playful way, basically on a daily basis. Because language is a living thing, and if you don't live it, then you just forget it, or it becomes rusty, or it's just
absolutely. I think we have this slight misconception that children have a magic ability to suck in the language, and I don't think that's particularly true. In the fact that when you think about how a baby learns the mother tongue, there's 1 year of just listening, purely listening. Then there's another year of just making little utterances, and the child might just say like, da. And of course we positively reconfirm, did you say daddy? You said daddy? Well, no, the child didn't. Just said da, just say, like ba. Oh, did you say baby? So we have this way, and of course there's another year of the child just having all of this positive encouragement. And then after 2 to 3 years of simply just being exposed to the language, they then start to create a couple of words, and it slowly comes together. But there isn't this magic sort of, the fact that the children will just suck it in and instantly be able to use it. And very often you can see the children in our classes First of all, if I go in as a native English speaker into the classroom myself, the first thing they do is speak their mother tongue to me, and then realise that nothing's happening. So then they sort of so then they need to show something. So they try to act it out, and then when I understand, they say, you want an apple, or you want to give me your pen, and then they quickly see that I think everybody's lazy, including children, and they're looking at the easiest, simplest, and the way that takes the least amount of energy to get something understood. And it's not to mime everything, to show everything, and it's just to use the same word. Apple is much easier than say, I want, it's much, much easier just to say, apple, and to copy the words that person's using.
More effective.
Yes.
Less energy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Probably one of my last questions. Do you try to expose your daughters to any other foreign language, or?
Yes, I do a little. It was essentially that my eldest child discovered Dora the Explorer, and she loved it. Dora, maybe you've come across it.
Yes, I know it, but please explain.
Yeah, Dora it's an American series, and Dora is a little Spanish girl. So she is bilingual, and she often uses some Spanish. And of course, my daughter she wanted to read the books, and she wanted to watch some of the DVDs. So she started to copy and to count. I think she could count up to 10 in Spanish. She knew some of the basic colours and some of these things. And I think with her now at the level where she's comfortable switching between English and Czech, she is now curious about other languages and how do they say this in that language or the other language. So we've exposed her to some more languages, and I think perhaps when she goes to school, obviously for her to be in English class, might not be so beneficial. So perhaps German classes might be interesting for her. So it's.
So would you have any tips for parents who are at home and who are both Czech, mother and father are Czech, so they're monolingual, and they would like to expose from the beginning their children to English? Yeah. What they could do?
My big tip is that you should be sensitive about the change. If the changing language comes very quickly and out of the blue and puts the children on the spot, then I think you can start to have some negative reactions to it. As to the question of, well, why are you speaking English to me now? We say that if the best thing is, one of the best hooks to hang the language on is the face. So that's why we use a human face, but the face of a puppet or a character. So you can have a character, and when that character comes out, then the children have this signpost that the language is about to change. Perhaps it can be, I think the visual ones are better. So certainly having a character, be that a real person is obviously better, or then a character or a puppet. And then perhaps have something like a hat or a t-shirt, or I saw one mother that used her apron. And when she put on her English apron, that was when it was the signal that they were changing language. And she would pin different pictures. She would stick it onto her apron. So there was always the visual clue about what words that they were going to look at. I thought that was a great way. A hat, a poster, perhaps, and then maybe using the same area initially.
That's what we have.
Saying that this is the English corner, this is the English carpet, this is the English rug. Let's sit down. At least start there, and then you say, okay, so we're sitting in the English corner. Let's start with a song that you really like. Okay, now let's go to the kitchen and see what we can see, and try to name them in English or something like that. So it's.
That's how we started. We started reading English books in a special area at home.
Yep.
It was just a small table with a bookshelf where only English books were kept.
Nice.
And then after 2 years, we basically switched to English anytime she asks me.
Yeah.
she either addresses me "mummy" in Czech, or she goes "mommy" in English with a different intonation. So
I think if it's initiated by the child, they've mentally prepared for the switch.
yes.
If it's initiated by you, they do need.
There must be a clear sign.
Yeah. And
now it's different.
And it gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And of course, with my children, it's almost a nanosecond that they turn, they see me, and there's no question that they're going to say something in English, and then they turn to mummy, and they see mummy's face, and then they've switched incredibly quickly. But in a monolingual family, I think we need to sort of be initially set up these parameters, so that it's. The children can prepare for the change.
I absolutely agree.
Great.
Well, thank you very much for the interview. It was very lovely speaking to you, and I wish you all the best.
You too.
I hope you will have many happy small children and big children.
Thank you kindly. Yes, and
eager to learn English.
Yeah, well, we'd love. We've set up a Facebook page, so we're under Wattsenglish on Facebook. We're trying to do more and more different things. We've opened up a Patreon page, and Patreon is where people who find value from some of the things that we do can look at ways that they can help us to produce. We've got lots of ideas, but of course ideas take time and money. We've got all of this, and on YouTube and everywhere else, we're trying to have a bigger presence on the web.
We are your big followers. So.
Thank you very much, and we do offer a quick hello on Skype, or on we record birthday messages for some of the children. So if you're one of our Patreons, then I'll sing happy birthday to the individual child and say hello to you. And there's access to some MP3s and some video clips and all the rest. So that's via Patreon.
Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you kindly. Do take care. Okay. All the best, and say hi to your little one from me.
Thank you.
And Maggie, of course. But
and your new character. I forgot his name.
And Bob the Blob. At the moment, that's Bob the Blob. He's a blob.
Okay, I understand. Bob the Blob.
So,
bye-bye
is
to all of you.
Thanks very much. Take care. Cheerio. Bye bye.